Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today's conversation with a question that, honestly, it feels a little uncomfortable to sit with.
Okay.
If you look at the people you really admire, I'm talking the absolute titans of industry, the artists who shifted the culture, the leaders who actually led people somewhere new, what is the fundamental difference between them and, well, everyone else?
The average person.
Right, the average person. And before you answer, I want to take the usual suspects off the table immediately.
Mhm.
It is not that they inherited a fortune. It is not that they had a higher IQ or went to better schools. And it certainly isn't that they had an easier life or fewer problems.
No. In fact, if you look at the biographical data of high achievers, the data usually suggests they had a significantly harder life. More trauma, more obstacles, more setbacks.
Exactly. So we are left with this X factor, this missing variable. And today, we are exploring a philosophy that claims to identify exactly what that X factor is.
And this is a big one.
It is. We are tearing into a classic from the leadership canon, Failing Forward, Turning Mistakes into Stepping Stones for Success by John C. Maxwell.
And look, I know what some of you are probably thinking right now. Failing forward.
Right.
It sounds like a bumper sticker on a minivan. It sounds like something a middle manager says right before they fire you to make themselves feel better.
Oh, totally. Great job failing forward, Bob. Now pack your things. Security is waiting.
Precisely. We have become so cynical about these terms, and for good reason a lot of the time. But here's the thing about John C. Maxwell. He isn't a fluff guy.
No, not at all.
He is a heavyweight in this space. He's the founder of the I Enjoy Group. He has sold something like 12 million books, including the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. When he talks about leadership, he isn't looking at motivational posters. He's looking at the mechanics of human behavior.
The nuts and bolts of it.
Exactly. And his central thesis in this book is that the difference between greatness and mediocrity comes down to one specific variable.
Just one variable. That seems, I don't know, a little reductive.
It does, doesn't it? It sounds too simple. But hear him out. He argues that talent is overrated, opportunity is often random or, evenly distributed over a lifetime, but the specific response to failure is the only thing entirely within your control.
So that's the separator.
That is the separator, how you metabolize mistakes.
It reminds me of that old line, I think it was J.M. Barrie, who said, "We are all failures. At least all the best of us are."
That's the spirit of it. That's exactly it. But Maxwell takes it a step further.
Yeah.
He doesn't just say failure is good. He differentiates between failing backward and failing forward.
Okay, break that down.
The average person fails backward. They hit a wall, they internalize the pain, they personalize the rejection,
Yeah.
and they retreat. They shrink. The experience subtracts from them.
It makes them smaller,
Yeah.
more cautious next time.
Yes. Whereas the achiever,
What do you about the other?
they use the rubble to build the road.
Yeah.
It's a metabolic process for them. They eat the failure and turn it into energy. It adds to them. It makes them stronger. And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out how they do that. Because it's not enough to just tell a listener, don't give up.
That's useless advice.
It's totally useless. We need the nuts and bolts. We need to deconstruct the fear.
Okay, so let's get into the anatomy of this. Because I think most of us, intellectually, we know we shouldn't fear failure. We've heard all the platitudes. But emotionally,
Oh, it's terrifying.
it's terrifying. I have a whole mental archive of never doing that again moments that I keep under lock and key.
We all do. And that's why Maxwell starts the book not with a theory, but with a story.
Mm.
And it's a story I thought I knew. I mean, everyone knows the brand, but the details are actually staggering. It's the origin story of Mary Kay Ash.
The cosmetics queen. The pink Cadillacs.
That's the image we have now. A billion-dollar global empire. Success, wealth, status. But do you know how it started? Do you know the actual context of her overnight success?
I assumed she was always good at sales. Just a natural.
She was phenomenal at sales. She spent her entire early career in direct sales. But we have to contextualize this. This is the 1960s. The corporate ceiling for women wasn't just glass. It was reinforced concrete.
Right.
She would train these young men, teach them everything she knew about the product, about the pitch, how to close a deal.
She'd give them her whole playbook.
Her entire playbook, and then she'd watch them get promoted over her. They would become her bosses and earn double her salary.
That is the kind of frustration that just burns a hole in your stomach. To be the teacher and then be ruled by the student just because of gender.
It did burn for years. Finally, after one too many of these humiliations, she quit. She walked away. She went home and sat at her kitchen table and decided, I'm going to write a book.
Okay.
She wanted to write a guide for women in business to help them navigate this rigged system. She wanted to vent, Get it all out.
So it started as a manual,
Yeah.
or maybe a manifesto.
It probably started as a rant. But as she wrote, she was listing out all the things companies did wrong, and then listing out how a company should be run treating people fairly, rewarding merit, golden rule stuff.
And as she's writing it...
She realized she had designed a perfect business plan. She thought, wait, why am I writing about this? I should build this.
So the idea was born out of the frustration.
Completely. So she pushes her chips all the way in. She takes her life savings, $5,000.
Which, in 1963, was real money. That's like a down payment on a house.
It was everything she had. She sinks it into this launch. She buys the rights to a skin cream recipe from a tanner's daughter.
Wait, hang on. A tanner? As in someone who works with leather?
Yes. It's a crazy story. The story goes that she found a woman whose father was a hide tanner, and she had noticed that while his face looked old and weathered, his hands, which were in the tanning solutions all day, looked young and smooth.
That sounds chemically dangerous. I'm not sure I'd want to put that on my face.
It probably was. But she bought the formula. It smelled terrible, apparently, but it worked.
Okay.
She hires a manufacturing plant. She rents a storefront. She pours everything into this launch. And then, 1 month before she opens the doors, tragedy strikes.
This is the part of the story that always gets me, because up until now, it's a standard underdog entrepreneur story. We've heard versions of this.
Right. But then her husband, her partner in all of this, the person handling the administration so she could sell, sits down at the breakfast table and dies of a massive heart attack.
Oh, my God.
Just gone. And you had to pause for a second. Put yourself in that kitchen. You are a woman in 1963, a time when women couldn't even get a credit card without a husband's signature often. You have no job.
You've just spent your entire life saving
On a business that hasn't sold a single jar of cream. You are grieving. You are alone. The smart money says you fold.
Oh, absolutely. No one would blame you. In fact, your family is probably begging you to get your deposit back from the landlord. Mary, stop. It's over. Go get a job.
Yeah, exactly. A lawyer actually told her to liquidate immediately to save whatever penny she had left. He told her she would be penniless within 6 months.
That is the moment of divergence. That is the fork in the road.
That is where 99% of people fail backward. They view the tragedy as a sign to stop. The universe is telling me no. The deck is stacked against me.
And she viewed it as what?
She viewed the work as the way through the grief. Her children rallied around her. Her son took over the administrative role, and she launched 1 month later.
Wow.
And Maxwell's point isn't just that she was tough. It's that she possessed the specific quality that separates achievers from the average. The ability to fail forward. She didn't let the external circumstance, the failure of her personal life, the loss, dictate the trajectory of her professional life. She decoupled them.
That decoupling seems to be the key. We tend to link everything together into one big ball of anxiety. I had a bad breakup, so I'm unlovable, so I'm bad at my job, so I'm a total failure.
Right. It's the domino effect of self-worth. It all gets tangled up. But achievers put up firewalls. My husband died. That is a tragedy. I will grieve it. My business is a separate entity. I will nurture it. And she built a world-class organization.
And this leads us to how Maxwell defines success. Because if you want to fail forward, you have to redefine what you are actually aiming for. I think a lot of us have a warped view of what success actually looks like. He uses this acronym, REAL.
Yes, and this is so important. He argues that success isn't a destination. You don't arrive at success. It's a journey. And to be a real success, you need 4 components. The first is R for relationships.
The ability to get along with people makes or breaks you, which honestly feels a bit obvious, doesn't it?
It is obvious, and yet it's the #1 reason high performers fail. You can be a genius coder, you can be the best writer in the world, you can be a visionary architect.
A true virtuoso in your field.
Right. But if you torch every bridge you walk across, if people hate working with you, you will eventually cap out. Your talent can only take you so far. Success is almost always a collaborative effort. There's no such thing as a self-made man or woman.
Which flows right into E for equipping.
Right. Equipping means teaching others. It's the understanding that success requires a team. Maxwell says, those closest to you determine your level of success.
So if you're the smartest person in your inner circle,
You're in trouble. If you aren't bringing people up with you, your success is fragile. If you get sick, it's over. If you burn out, it's over. Equipping is about redundancy and legacy. It's about making your success bigger than just you.
they have A for attitude.
Okay, I have to stop you there. That is a cliche. That is on every CAP poster in every guidance counselor's office in America. Is there actually substance to that, or is it just motivational fluff?
It is a cliche, I'll give you that. The phrase itself is cheesy. But let's strip away the cheese and look at it through a hiring lens.
If you are a CEO and you have two candidates, candidate A is brilliant, top of their class, highly skilled, but they're defensive, arrogant, and they crumble or blame others when things go wrong.
I know this person.
We all do.
Yeah.
Candidate B is pretty good. Maybe not a genius, but competent. But they're curious, resilient, great to be around, and they bounce back instantly from errors. They own their mistakes. Who do you hire?
The second one. Every single time. It's not even a question.
Every time. Because skills can be taught. You can teach someone to use a new piece of software. Resilience and attitude are much harder to manufacture. Attitude is the operating system. You can have great hardware skills, but if the OS attitude is buggy, the machine crashes.
That's a good analogy. And finally, L for leadership.
Everything rises and falls on leadership. And he doesn't just mean managing a corporation. He means personal effectiveness.
Leading yourself.
Exactly. Lifting the lid on your own potential requires leading yourself. Can you get yourself out of bed when you're depressed? Can you make yourself work when no one is watching? Can you manage your own emotions and impulses? That is self-leadership.
So if you have relationships, equipping, attitude, and leadership working, you are a real success, regardless of the bank account balance at this exact second.
Exactly, because those are the assets that generate the money and the impact eventually.
Oh.
But here is where it gets really interesting. Maxwell brings up a quote by J. Wallace Hamilton that stopped me in my tracks.
Oh, yeah.
He says, "People are training for success when they should be training for failure."
See, that sounds counterintuitive again. Why would I train to fail?
I know. My first reaction was the same.
Yeah, I want to train to win. I don't go to the gym to practice dropping the weights on my foot.
But look at the statistics of life.
Yeah.
Just cold, hard numbers. Failure is far more common than success. Disappointment is more normal than arrival.
Give me an example.
If you are a professional baseball player, you failed to hit the ball 70% of the time, and you are considered a Hall of Famer.
Right. A 300 batting average is elite.
Elite. If you are in sales, you get 19 no's for every yes. If you're an entrepreneur, you will likely fail 3 to 5 times before a big win.
So if you only train for the yes, you are woefully unprepared for 90% of your actual lived experience.
Precisely. We spend all our time visualizing the trophy ceremony, but we don't visualize what we do when we trip on the starting line. And that's the goal of failing forward. Not to avoid the problems, but to learn how to look failure in the eye and say, okay, I know you, I know how to handle you.
Oh.
It's about building the callus.
Okay, so let's get into the mechanics of this. Part of the problem is how we define failure. We treat it like it's this big, scary monster, but Maxwell argues we need to redefine it entirely.
He tackles the myth that failure is an event. And this is a huge mental shift for most people.
What do you mean by an event?
We are conditioned by the school system to believe this. Think about it. You take a test, you get an F. That is a single moment in time. You failed. Boom. Done. The red ink is on the paper.
The dreaded red ink. It feels like a judgment on your soul, not just your knowledge of algebra.
Right, it feels final.
Yeah.
But Maxwell says that F wasn't the failure. The F was just the result. It was the lagging indicator. The failure was the process leading up to it, neglecting to study, not paying attention in class, not asking for help.
So failure is a process, just like success is a process.
Exactly. It's a series of small choices that lead to a result. He has this great line, "No one can conclude that he has failed until he breathes his last breath."
Until then, the jury is out. You're just in the middle of the story.
You're just in a chapter. You haven't gotten to the end.
To illustrate this difference between viewing failure as an event versus a process, he compares two pioneers of aviation, Samuel Langley and the Wright brothers.
This is a fascinating historical contrast, and most people don't know who Langley is anymore, which kind of proves the point. Samuel Langley was the heavy favorite to invent the airplane. He was a renowned scientist, the secretary of the Smithsonian. He had massive government funding. The War Department gave him $50,000, which was an absolute fortune back then.
He had the media, the prestige.
He was the too-big-to-fail candidate. He had the best materials, the best minds working for him. He built this machine called the Great Aerodrome.
Seems impressive.
It was supposed to be. He invites the press. It's a huge event on the Potomac River.
Yeah.
And it was a complete disaster.
Yeah.
The wings snap. The thing plunges into the river like a stone.
Oh, that's humiliating.
In front of everyone.
Utterly humiliating. The press called it Langley's folly. They just ridiculed him.
Ouch. And what was his reaction?
He quit immediately. He essentially said, my work is done, the world can look to others. He viewed that crash as a finalized event. I tried, I failed, it's over. He was demoralized because he had so much of his identity attached to the event of success.
And then you have the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, the complete opposite. Uneducated, didn't finish high school. Unfunded, they were paying for it with the profits from their bicycle repair shop in Dayton, Ohio.
They were just tinkerers, hobbyists, basically.
They were total outsiders. And here's the thing. They crashed repeatedly.
Yeah.
They crashed way more than Langley did. They crashed 5 times a day sometimes. Their early gliders were a mess.
But they didn't see the crash as the end?
No. They saw every crash as data. It was part of the process of solving the problem. Okay, we crashed. Why? Was it the wing shape, the rudder? Let's tweak it and go again.
The crash was just a data point, not a verdict.
It was a data point. And they flew barely a few days after Langley quit. The difference wasn't intelligence or money. It was that Langley saw failure as a tombstone, and the Wright brothers saw it as a stepping stone.
That is the perfect visualization, tombstone versus stepping stone. But why do we struggle with this so much? Why do we default to the Langley mindset? Maxwell brings up the famous monkey experiment by Hamel and Prahalad. This one, honestly, this explains almost every toxic corporate culture I've ever worked in.
It explains a lot about human nature, period. So for those who haven't heard it, researchers put 4 monkeys in a room. In the center is a tall pole with a bunch of luscious bananas at the top. Naturally, one monkey starts climbing to get the fruit.
Makes sense. Monkey sees banana, monkey gets banana.
And then the researchers do something pretty cruel. As soon as the monkey reaches for the banana, the researchers blast all the monkeys with ice-cold water from a high-pressure hose.
Not just the climber, but the innocent bystanders, too. Collective punishment.
Everyone gets punished. So another monkey tries. Bam! Cold water on everyone. Pretty soon the monkeys connect the dots. Climbing pole equals misery for everyone.
So what do?
They start policing themselves. If a monkey even looks at the pole, the other monkeys pull him down and beat him up to save everyone from the water.
They become the enforcers of the rule.
Exactly. Now, here is the twist. The researchers turn off the water. No more punishment. But the monkeys don't know that. Then, they remove one of the original monkeys and replace him with a new monkey. Let's call him the new guy.
The new guy sees the bananas and thinks, jackpot, why is no one eating these?
He starts to climb, and immediately, the 3 old monkeys, who have been traumatized by the water, pull him down and beat him up. He has no idea why. He just learns, don't climb the pole.
Oh, wow.
And eventually, they replace all the original monkeys one by one until you have 4 monkeys in the room who have never been sprayed with water. Yet none of them will climb the pole.
And if they could speak and you ask them why they don't go for the bananas,
They would probably say, I don't know, that's just how things are done around here.
that is learned helplessness. It gives me chills because I hear that phrase in meetings all the time. That's just how we do it. We can't try that new idea because... well, just because.
It is. And it applies to us individually, too.
Mm-hmm.
We stop trying, not because we physically can't succeed, but because we have internalized a culture of failure. Maybe it's our family, maybe it's a toxic workplace, or maybe it's just our own past experiences. We are afraid of water that isn't even there anymore.
That is a powerful image. Are you stopping yourself because of water that isn't there anymore?
And that leads us to what Maxwell calls the failure freeway. It's this idea of getting stuck in a cycle of repeated mistakes.
The failure freeway. I feel like I've been stuck in traffic there a few times.
We all have. It's when you repeat the same mistakes over and over because you aren't learning the lesson. You're just doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
He uses the story of Rosie Ruiz to illustrate this. Do you remember her?
The marathon runner?
Yeah.
The cheater. Oh, yeah, this is a wild story.
So for our listeners who might not know, what happened?
In 1980, she won the Boston Marathon. She crossed the finish line with a record time for a woman.
Yeah.
But people were suspicious immediately.
Right.
She didn't look tired. She wasn't sweating much. Her hair was perfect. She didn't know the answers to basic questions about the race course. It turned out she had jumped out of the crowd near the finish line.
She took the subway, right? Or something like that for a big chunk of it.
Basically, yes. She tried to shortcut the process. But the kicker, and the reason she's on the failure freeway, is that she had done the same thing in the New York Marathon earlier to qualify for Boston.
So it was a pattern.
It was a pattern. She was stuck in a loop. She wasn't training to be a runner. She was training to be a pretender. She got caught. She was disgraced. And she became a symbol of failing backward. She refused to go through the process, so she never actually moved forward.
So how do we get off the freeway? How do we find the exit ramp?
Maxwell shares a poem by Portia Nelson called Autobiography in 5 short chapters. And it is honestly the best metaphor for emotional maturity and breaking patterns I have ever heard. It's brilliant.
Walk us through it. I want the listeners to really visualize this.
Okay, chapter 1. I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out.
It isn't my fault. That's the key phrase there. The victim mindset. The world did this to me. The sidewalk is out to get me.
Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I am in the same place. But it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out.
Still in denial. You see this all the time. I just have bad luck with men, or my bosses are always jerks. It's always an external problem.
Chapter 3. This is the pivot. This is the big one. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately.
That is the moment, chapter 3. It is my fault. Not in a self-hating way, but in a self-aware, empowered way.
That's the moment you get off the failure freeway. Taking responsibility. As long as you are saying it isn't my fault, you are a victim. You are stuck in the hole. The moment you own it, you can climb out.
And then chapter 4 is the reward.
I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it.
And chapter 5.
I walk down another street.
I love that. It's so simple, but it perfectly captures how hard it is to break a pattern. We have to stop pretending we don't see the hole.
And we have to stop blaming the sidewalk for being there. It's our job to navigate it.
Speaking of blaming the sidewalk, Maxwell tells that old joke about the bureaucrat and the 3 envelopes.
Oh, the 3 envelopes. This is a classic corporate survival joke, and it's painfully accurate.
So set it up for us.
A new manager comes in to take over a failing department, and the outgoing manager hands him 3 sealed envelopes. He says, if you get into trouble, open these one by one.
Like a little emergency kit for blame shifting.
Exactly. So a few months go by, and the new guy hits his first crisis. The numbers are down. The team is unhappy.
He's in hot water.
So he opens the first envelope. It says, blame your predecessor. So he does, oh, the previous guy left this mess. I'm just cleaning it up. And it works. It buys him time. He survives.
A few months later, another crisis.
He opens the second envelope. It says, reorganize. So he shuffles the departments, changes some titles, moves desks around. It looks like he's taking bold action. It buys him more time. It works again. He survives.
Then the third crisis hits. It's a big one. The ship is really sinking this time.
He tears open the third envelope, hoping for the final piece of wisdom. And it says, prepare 3 envelopes.
Because his time is up. His turn to pass the buck.
It's funny, but it's tragic. That is the definition of failing backward. You are just dodging responsibility until you run out of tricks. You aren't solving the problem. You were just managing the blame.
So if taking responsibility is a key, that implies that failure is internal. It's not about what happens to you, but what happens in you.
Exactly. Maxwell says failure is an inside job.
Mm-hmm.
You can't control the external circumstances. You can't control the weather. You can't control the economy. But you control the response.
Which brings us to the story of Greg Horn. This one stresses me out just reading it.
Greg Horn owned a grocery store in Cynthiana, Kentucky. In 1997, massive flooding hits the region. We were talking a biblical-level disaster. His store is submerged in water. He lost $1 million in damage.
$1 million. For a small business owner, that's a death sentence.
And here's the kicker. He didn't have flood insurance.
Oh, no. That is the definition of a nightmare scenario. Most small business owners would be wiped out. Done.
It is. Most people would have declared bankruptcy and walked away. But Greg Horn had this mindset of, I can't control the rain, but I can control the atmosphere of my mind.
I like that. The atmosphere of my mind, it's like your own personal weather system.
He focused purely on the solvable problems. He didn't waste 1 second of energy on why me or this is unfair. He asked, how do we clean the mud? How do we raise capital? How do we reopen? He refused to let the external failure become an internal defeat.
It reminds me of that Norwegian saying Maxwell quotes, there is no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing.
Precisely. It's about preparation and attitude. The weather is a neutral fact. Your reaction to it determines if it's a disaster or an adventure. Are you dressed for the storm?
Now, Greg Horn's story is about financial recovery, but Maxwell goes even deeper into the human spirit with the story of Beck Weathers. If you've read Into Thin Air, you know this name. This is heavy stuff.
Weathers. This is one of the most harrowing survival stories of modern times. It's almost unbelievable. He was a wealthy pathologist on Mount Everest during the famous 1996 disaster. A storm hits blizzard conditions, 50 degrees below zero, winds tearing the tents apart.
And he had a particular problem, right?
Yes. The altitude affected a previous eye surgery he'd had, and he went effectively blind. He couldn't see. He gets separated from his group. He is literally left for dead in the snow.
They thought he was gone.
He was in a hypothermic coma. His fellow climbers found him, saw he was encased in ice. His skin was porcelain white. They concluded he was beyond saving. They left him to die. They even radioed his wife to tell her he was dead.
Can you imagine being written off by the world while you are still breathing somewhere inside that frozen shell?
But somehow, and medical science still struggles to explain this, he woke up. He calls it a resurrection. He stood up, blind and frozen, hands completely useless, and staggered back to camp under his own power.
He survived, but at a terrible cost.
A terrible cost. He lost his nose, his right arm, and all the fingers on his left hand to severe frostbite. He was physically shattered. He looks in the mirror and sees a different person.
It's hard to see how anyone recovers from that, not just physically, but mentally.
Right. But here is the failing forward part. Buck Weathers calls that event positive.
How can losing your arm and nose be positive? That sounds like a coping mechanism, like rationalization.
It sounds like it, until you hear him explain it. He says that before the mountain, he was driven by a hollow ambition. He was deeply depressed. He felt disconnected from his family. He was chasing accolades to fill a void inside himself.
He was successful on the outside, but empty on the inside.
Completely. He realized that his drive to climb Everest was, in his own words, high-altitude stupid.
High-altitude stupid. That's a hell of a phrase.
He said he traded his hands for his soul. He learned who he really was. He saved his marriage. He reconnected with his children. He found a kind of peace he never had before. He realized that success at the top of a mountain was meaningless if he was failing as a human being down at sea level.
So the failure wasn't just a stepping stone. It was a complete reconstruction of his entire being.
He made failure his friend by letting it reconstruct his character.
That is profound. Sometimes the failure destroys the ego so the real person can emerge.
That's it. And that leads directly to the next point, confronting self. Sometimes we fail, not because we aren't trying hard enough, but because we are just on the wrong path. We are banging our head against a wall that isn't going to move because it's not our wall to bang on.
Maxwell tells the story of John James Audubon. We know him for The Birds, The Beautiful Prince. But I didn't know he was a failure for 35 years.
35 years. He tried everything to be a businessman in the early 1800s. He ran a general store, a mill. He had partners. He failed at all of it, miserably. He even went to jail for debt.
Why? Was he lazy? Was he unintelligent?
No, he just wasn't a businessman. He had no head for it, no passion for it. He was an artist. He loved nature. He would skip work to go watch birds in the forest. He was trying to be something he wasn't because that's what society said a successful man did.
So the failure was actually a signal. It was feedback.
It was crucial feedback. The breakthrough came when he finally admitted, I am not built for this. He stopped trying to be a merchant and embraced his obsession with birds. He started painting them. And the result was Birds of America. A single copy sold recently for something like $5 million.
So the lesson here isn't just try harder. It's know yourself.
Exactly. Sometimes failing is the universe telling you you are a bad fit for this lane. Your talents lie elsewhere. You need to see yourself clearly and admit your flaws honestly.
Maxwell quotes Gary Marshall, the famous producer of Pretty Woman and Happy Days.
Yes, Marshall had this great line. He said, here are my flaws. Now I have to find something I'm good at. He calls it moving sideways.
Moving sideways. I like that.
If you keep hitting a wall, don't just back up and run at it harder. Move sideways. Find a door. Find a window. Find a different wall. Audubon moved sideways from business to art. That made all the difference.
I think a lot of people are scared to move sideways because of fear. Fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. If I quit this law career to become a baker, I'm a quitter.
Fear is the great paralyzer. And often it's fear of risk. But Maxwell argues that we have a distorted view of risk. We often think risk is dangerous, but playing it safe is often the most dangerous thing you can do over a lifetime.
He tells a funny story about Alexander Dumas, the author of The Three Musketeers, to illustrate how we handle do-or-die situations.
This is a great anecdote, apparently told by Ronald Reagan. So Dumas and a friend get into a heated argument. They're both expert marksmen. They decide to duel. But they know if they duel with pistols, they will both kill each other.
Mutually assured destruction, a classic standoff.
Right. So they come up with a different plan. They decide to draw straws. The loser has to go into the next room and shoot himself.
That is a dark and frankly insane solution.
It is. So Dumas draws the short straw. He sighs, takes his pistol, goes into the library, and closes the door. The friends wait, holding their breath. Bam! A gunshot rings out.
Oh my God.
The friends rush in, terrified, expecting to find the worst. And there stands Dumas, holding the smoking gun. He looks at them and says, "I missed."
I missed. That is classic.
It's hilarious. But Maxwell uses it to pivot to a serious point about unrealistic expectations. Sometimes we feel like we failed because we set a goal that was impossible, or frankly, ridiculous, like shooting yourself and missing.
If you set a goal to jump over a house and you don't make it, you aren't a failure. The goal was the failure. It was poorly conceived.
Exactly. But let's talk about real risk. Maxwell talks about information paralysis. This is huge in the modern world. We feel like we need to know 100% of the facts before we make a move.
We doom scroll, we research, we read reviews until our eyes bleed. We want certainty. We want to eliminate all risk.
And we never act. Because there's no such thing as certainty. Maxwell quotes General Douglas MacArthur, who said, "Expect only 5% of an intelligence report to be accurate. The trick of a good commander is to isolate the 5%.
Only 5%? That's terrifying. That means 95% of what you think you know is wrong or irrelevant.
It is. But war and life and business is chaotic. You will never have perfect info. If you wait for certainty, you will be passed by.
He gives the example of the Rolls-Royce purchase, right?
Oh, the BMW versus Volkswagen thing. This is a great business blunder. A cautionary tale.
So what happened there?
In the late 90s, Volkswagen and BMW were fighting to buy Rolls-Royce motors. Volkswagen won the bidding war. They paid $780 million. They thought they bought the company.
They popped the champagne. We own Rolls-Royce.
Then they read the fine print, and oops, they bought the factory, the designs, and the famous grille shape. But they didn't buy the rights to the name Rolls-Royce or the logo.
No way.
That trademark belonged to a separate aerospace company, which, oops, had close ties to BMW. So BMW got the name for a fraction of the cost, something like $65 million. And Volkswagen spent nearly $1 billion for a factory they couldn't fully use.
Wow. Talk about a due diligence fail. That's $1 billion mistake based on bad information.
It was a massive information failure. But the point isn't don't act. It's that even giant corporations with armies of lawyers make mistakes. You have to gather what you can, make your best guess, and then you have to leap. You can't let the fear of being wrong keep you frozen.
And sometimes being wrong leads to being right. This is the concept of accidental discoveries.
Yes. In science, mistakes always precede the truth. Maxwell tells the story of Schonbein and gun cotton.
This is the guy who blew up his wife's apron.
Yes. Christian Schonbein. He was a 19th century chemist. He was messing around with acids in his kitchen, which, by the way, don't do this at home. He spilled some nitric and sulfuric acid. He panicked. He grabbed the nearest cloth, which happened to be his wife's cotton apron, to wipe it up.
A very bad move.
A very bad move. And then he tried to dry it. He hung it over the stove. Suddenly, peek, the apron vanished in a smokeless flash.
Wow.
He had accidentally invented nitrocellulose gun cotton. Smokeless gunpowder. It changed warfare and mining forever.
All because he's clumsy and used the wrong rag.
Exactly. If he hadn't made the mistake, he wouldn't have found the breakthrough. You have to be in the kitchen making a mess to discover the new thing. You can't discover anything sitting on the couch being careful.
Maxwell also talks about how adversity motivates us. The Bear Bryant story.
Bear Bryant, the legendary Alabama football coach. He had a philosophy about pressure. He said that if you are ahead in a game, you play conservatively. You try to run out the clock. You play not to lose.
To prevent defense, which
And
usually
yeah.
prevents you from winning.
Right. It creates a mindset of fear. But when you are behind, when you are failing, you take risks. You throw the Hail Mary. You are aggressive. You go for it on fourth down. Adversity sharpens your focus. It forces you to innovate. If life is too easy, you get soft. Failure wakes you up. It demands your best.
So we've covered the mindset, the fear, the benefits. Now let's talk about the grit, the persistence.
This is where the rubber meets the road. You can have the right attitude. You can have the failing forward philosophy. But if you don't keep moving your feet, you go nowhere.
He talks about R.H. Macy.
The department store guy. Macy was a serial failure. A complete disaster for decades. He failed as a whaler. He failed in dry goods. He opened store after store, and they all went belly up. He was dead broke multiple times.
But he kept opening them. He just wouldn't quit.
He had a Macy's, in Haverhill, Massachusetts. Failed. But he didn't say, I'm bad at retail. He said, I need a better location. He moved to New York City. And finally, the timing, the location, and all the lessons from his previous failures clicked. Macy's became an icon.
So all those bankruptcies were just tuition.
They were his MBA. Persistence is the little difference that makes a big difference.
Maxwell also mentions a friend of his, Dave Anderson, the founder of famous Dave's BBQ.
I love this story because Dave Anderson read the draft of Maxwell's book. Maxwell sent him the chapter about Dave's life listing all the failures, the bankruptcies, the struggles with alcohol, the business disasters.
And what did Dave say? That must have been tough to read.
He sent a note back saying, I've never seen my life story so laid out before. It's a wonder I never gave up.
When you see it all on one page, it looks insane. It looks like a tragedy, not a success story.
It does. But that's the reality of success. We see Famous Dave's as a successful chain. We don't see the years and years of struggle that preceded it. Dave Anderson is a millionaire today because he treated every single one of those failures as a tuition payment for his education and success. He didn't drop out of the school of hard knocks.
So how do we operationalize this? How do we put it into practice? Maxwell gives us an action plan. It starts with goals.
You have to have a goal. You must. He uses the boxer analogy. If a boxer gets knocked down, why does he get up?
Because the fight's not over.
Because he has a goal. Knock out the opponent. If he didn't care about the goal, he'd stay on the canvas. It's comfortable down there.
Yeah.
No one hits you when you're down.
It's definitely softer than the fist.
Exactly. But the goal shapes the plan. The plan shapes the action. The action achieves results. And results bring success. It's a chain reaction.
And if you break the first link,
The whole thing falls apart. He has a great quote about this.
if you don't have a goal, you can't turn a failure into a success because you don't know where forward is.
That's the critical takeaway. Failing forward implies direction. If you are aimless, you are just failing. You're just spinning in circles. You need a North Star to orient yourself after you get knocked down. You need to know which way to crawl.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with the image Maxwell uses in the outro, the hot dog joke.
Never ask what's in a hot dog while you're eating one.
It's gross, but it's true. Don't look behind the curtain.
The analogy is perfect. If you dissected the life of a wildly successful person, a Steve Jobs, an Oprah, a Mary Kay Ash, and you looked at all the ingredients, the sleepless nights, the embarrassments, the tears, the rejections, the F grades, the bankruptcies.
All the stuff that goes into the sausage.
Exactly. You might not want to eat success. You might say, that looks too painful, that looks disgusting.
But that failure is the necessary ingredient. It's the flavor. It's what makes it substantial.
It is. You cannot have the success without the failure. They are two sides of the same coin. You can't buy one side.
So here is our challenge to you, the listener. Identify one failure you are holding on to right now. Maybe it's a project that bombed, a relationship that ended, or a habit you can't seem to break.
And apply the filters we talked about today. Is this an event or a process? Are you Langley, looking at the crash and quitting? Or are you the Wright brothers, looking at the crash and saying, okay, the rudder needs adjustment?
Are you stuck on the failure freeway saying, it's not my fault? Can you move to chapter 3 and say, I see the hole, it is my fault, I will get out?
And remember the monkeys. This is the big one to leave you with. Who is pulling you down? Is it an old boss? Is it a family member? Is it your own inner voice?
Are you stopping yourself because of water that isn't there anymore?
That's the question to chew on. Who are you letting pull you down from a reward that is just waiting for you at the top of the pole?
Fail early, fail often, but always fail forward.
That's the mantra.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you on the next one.
Keep climbing.